I'm Don Stanek, your Agile coach. This is the final chapter in the listing presentation. It's the point at which we take all the material that we've learned up to this point and we condense it into paperwork and the 30-day plan. What is the plan going forward? It's closing time. Let's get started. First off, by way of a little disclaimer, I'm a broker in more than one state, but I'm not your broker and I'm not your managing broker. I'm not your managing partner. I'm not your manager, your office manager, and I have no authority over you whatsoever. It's important that you stay compliant with whatever the wishes are of the brokerage or the broker who operates above you. Your paperwork needs to be in alignment with what they want. If I'm offering any type of insight, it's my own personal experience, my own professional experience, and what I've encountered over the many, many years of being a listing agent. Okay, with that said, I feel the first document you should probably present to your seller at this time is agency. If you haven't already got an agency signed, I recommend the agency disclosure document gets signed at this time. And you might want to present that to your seller, and it's a disclosure document. It's disclosure, which means here are the certain duties, rights, obligations, and responsibilities that I owe you when you're hiring me. We have a fiduciary responsibility. That means I have to look out for your best interest. Now, explain a little bit about that document, because if they don't have a willingness to sign that document, it's only a disclosure. It's actually not a contract. It's just a disclosure. I need to tell you some things about who I am and how I relate to you. I can't talk about your property in the market without your permission. Please sign here. Here's a little bit about what I do when you hire me, and I'm your agent. Here's what the word agency means. It's explained in this document. If for any number of reasons your seller doesn't want to sign any kind of paperwork and they're just locking up, you're going to find out right then and there. Now, some people just send packages off by DocuSign or automated signature. I think that's probably a good idea for some documents, but I want to make sure that I explain agency and I get clarity and I get a signature on that and someone actually puts a real signature on it, because if I'm going to get any kind of paperwork resistance, I'm going to feel it right then and there. The next document that I'm going to present to my seller at this time, and I'm going to hand them a piece of paper, and what this is a breakdown of how commissions typically work within a transaction. Now, I'm going to hand this document to them, and I'm going to say something pretty specific. I'm going to say, Jim, here's a sample of how commissions break out in a transaction. Now, remember, of course, all commissions are negotiable between buyers and sellers, and also between agents and clients. Everything's negotiable. So please understand that that's so. However, here's typically how a structure is going to work in the market where we are right now. Why is it important to lay that groundwork? Well, because sometimes your client thinks that, well, if you just come up with a number and say, well, you know, the listing fee is 6%. They think you're taking that 6% maybe and putting it in your pocket, living happily ever after, and you really didn't do that much for it. Now, that might be the case, I don't know. But the odds are that's not true, and it's just a perception of the public. And so remember, earlier in this presentation, way in the introduction, we said we're going to answer 3 important questions. How much is the home going to sell for? How long is it going to take? And what do you charge for your services? Well, I'm finally getting around to talking about what do we charge for our services. I take the commission and I break it out on a sheet. There's the listing commission fee is this amount of money, and if we want to participate and have other people come and bring us buyers, we want to cooperate with the buyer's agent, we need to allocate some of that money in that direction, okay? And I want you to explain it just like that. It's a marketing fee. Effectively, what we're doing is it's a marketing fee. Then from that point, you might want to go even further and explain the fact that, and even though I'm the listing agent and this is the listing side of the commission, I actually don't get all that money. A good portion of it goes to my brokerage, and then another portion of that goes so that I can pay some expenses associated with promoting your property correctly. Now, why am I going through the headache of dividing all these things down? Because I don't want my client to think that I'm making a ton of money off this transaction, and I don't want to position this person for asking for a commission reduction. Now, sometimes I might present it like this. Jim, When it comes to selling your home, there's going to be some fees involved with that, and one of them is commissions. Now, commissions are negotiable, and with my brokerage, we have a fee that we charge, a minimum fee, and that number is 3%, 2.5%, whatever that number is. Let's just say it's 3%. Now, in addition to that, in order for us to attract more buyers agents, we recommend that you cooperate in the market and offer an additional amount of money towards attracting buyers agents. Now, what you can do at that point in your presentation is you can pull a sample. Here's all the active listings that are currently around your property. And on top of it, here is the buy-side commission, right? So you can pull this through the MLS, and the MLS is going to show you what the cooperating percentage is. You can run that report, have it with you. You can take a look at 100 properties or 1,000 properties or 500 properties or whatever the number is active in this location. And you can see that, some are at 3%, quite a few are at 3%, some are at 2.5%, some are at 2%, some are at, 1% even. Now, when you take a look at this, you see the vast majority in this market fall within this range. It's important that they understand that this number is negotiable still. And if they're offering to cooperate, that means they are offering that amount of money to attract a buyer's agent to this world, okay, to their transaction, to their house, to show the property. By illustrating what's actually happening, what's typical in the market, you're helping them understand why you are doing what you're doing. Now, the truth of the matter is, everything's negotiable. Our firm charges 3%, so we take a minimum of 3%. We recommend that you also offer a 3% in order to attract a lot of buyers and buyers agents. And so if we take a look at what's happening, what's typical in the market, most everyone's offering between 3 and 2.5%. Sometimes it goes down to 2%, but we want to make sure that we can attract as many buyers agents to show the home as humanly possible. We don't want to have any obstacles in place. Now, if you can remember back when we talked about these splits, and part of it goes to the brokerage, so the buy side agent is experiencing the same situation, and so if they have to give up 50% or 20% or whatever that number they're giving up to their brokerage, and they're going to show your property and we're only offering 1% or 2%, the truth of the matter is that might actually have a really big impact on that agent's income. Now, we would hope that they would show the property anyway, but I would like to kind of just eliminate the doubt that they might not. I think there's a lot of wisdom in making sure that you're offering at least this amount of money to buyer's agents to bring them in to keep them attractive. What have I just done there? I've taken this commission and I've dissected it into many, many components, and I've created a compelling argument that we have a minimum fee and it's this. We recommend that you offer this type of fee in cooperating. Well, lo and behold, you combine those two numbers, and that's really what your listing contract percentage really is. I have found many times as I do this, it breaks down some of the mystery involved with the number. I'm stuck in the number. Well, I'm not going to pay you 6%. What are you, crazy? I'm not going to pay you 5%. What are you, crazy? Once you start dissecting it and realize, hey, this is spread out over 4 or 5 entities, right? I got a list side broker, I got a buy side broker, I got an agent below that, which is me, I got an agent below the buy side broker, which is them. In addition to that, I'm going to be incurring some additional expenses in order to market your home correctly. I'm going to pay for a little bit of advertising, I pay for photography, I pay for the Matterport, pay for all these other things. And so when it's said and done, I'm not getting 6%. What I am getting is I'm earning a living, right? So it's a number, but it's a piece of a piece of a piece. It's not this whole pie. You need to share it with a bunch of people in order to establish the highest possible amount of success that you can for your seller. Now, the next document that I want you to share with your seller is an estimated net proceeds sample. What this is a document that you've prepared in advance with a price on it, and then commissions, and then all the other settlement charges. There might be escrow and title, insurance, there might be attorney's fees, there might be the fee to record at the county recordation office, all these other things that are in there. You can get these samples with a good estimate from a settlement company that you're currently using or that your broker uses on a regular basis. Get that sample. You want to share it with them. You want to make sure that your seller's on the same page. You've talked about this price in theory, and you've kind of showed all these comps. Now we're testing the price. The price that you're going to put at the top of that net sheet is basically the price based on factual closed comps that you can support in evidence in this neighborhood. And here's why. That's most likely going to be pretty close to the appraised value. You're not an appraiser. I don't use the word appraised value, but what you want to do is say, given the evidence in the market and the closed comps, this price is based on closed comps today, and it most likely represents a value that a bank would accept. Pretty ambiguous language, okay? They're going to look at the number and say, "Oh, 525? No. I think my house is worth 675." This isn't an opportunity for you to get into an argument. What you're doing is when you put it on the estimated statement, you're just testing. Are they even open to a conversation that their home might be worth less, than their expectation? I don't know. But you need to figure it out right then and there. Now, here's the other important part of this net sheet. You're going to end up with a net number at the bottom of that sheet. Is that number going to be big enough to support the seller's go-forward plan with either the acquisition of another property or whatever their goal is with the proceeds of the sale of the house? Are they going to have to close on the house and get these proceeds and then pull money out of a 401k or a savings plan in order to make an offer on another property? That might very well be the case, and if that's the case, you need to identify it right then and there, because it might trip you up. If you can't clearly give someone a course of action for success to go forward when using the net sheet example, you're going to have a problem. They're going to freeze. They're going to freeze up on you, and you don't want this to happen. You want to be prepared for it. Now, the number at the top of the sheet is purely just a number that you've pulled based on closed comps in the area. If you're getting resistance on the number, add some context around that number with the seller. Mr. Seller, this is based on closed comps in the area. This is the value that a bank will most likely accept. Now, from a marketing standpoint, if we can drive a lot of additional showings, we could very well get that number up. So what have I done here? I've just positioned my next conversation to say, we could get this number up, but it's going to be incumbent upon driving a lot of showings on the house. And how are we going to drive those showings? Well, we need to position that price at a place where it's going to get maximum attention. And the conversation goes a little something like this. Mr. Seller, we can certainly price your home above market and hope that we get a buyer or hope that we get an offer, but we might be trying to, catch lightning in a bottle, or the number of people that'll see your home is going to be relatively small. We can certainly do that. Another pricing strategy is that we priced home right at market, like right at the market. And what that might be is the number that's on the net sheet. And so this is where the average homes sell in an average amount of time with an average amount of interest in the property. And we could certainly align your property with that expectation. But I'll tell you, the most sophisticated sellers that I work with, what they do is employ a different strategy, and they actually price the home just a little bit below the net sheet expectation. And what this does is it drives maximum exposure, because you can get a lot more buyer's agents telling people about the property because it's just a screaming hot deal. What this is going to do is bring as many people in the door as we can in the shortest period of time. And instead of trying to chase the bottom from up above, what we're going to do is achieve the highest possible valuation by driving the price up in a multiple offer situation. Of these three different strategies for pricing, which one would you most likely want to go with? Now, at that point, you don't want to make them, put them on the spot, make them feel defensive. But the truth of the matter is everything that I just explained is totally factual, totally true. And I've personally experienced this literally hundreds of times in the market. If you overprice a house and it sits and sits and sits, well, eventually you have to reduce the price. Many times that price is going to be below what you could have achieved if you just would have started with a lower price and driven the price up through increased exposure and having more people interested in it in a shorter period of time. You want to have your seller buy into this concept, because it's not fantasy. This is how sophisticated people market property around the United States every day in order to achieve the highest possible result that they can in the market. So at this point, you could still possibly experience some pricing resistance. I want you to chew on this for a little bit. Don't gloss over it. I would rather you be direct and honest and professional right then and there than to risk taking an overpriced listing. You have a professional obligation to not give an expectation that someone's going to get some pie in the sky number. Now, the truth of the matter also is that every home sells at market value. Every home sells at market value. Because if somebody's afraid of leaving money on the table by underpricing their house, well, that doesn't happen, because free enterprise is about getting several people interested in the same time and driving the house up to market value. Technically, every house sells at market value if it is promoted and exposed to the public correctly. Exposed to the public correctly, right? Nothing sells below fair market if it's been promoted correctly. Factual statement, because as soon as you sign the contract, that, guess what? The home sells, that's the market. That's the new market, right? Everything before the buyer shows up is just a theoretical discussion of valuation. So try not to get too caught up on this number and try to talk your seller off the ledge of a higher number. They're not going to leave money on the table, because every house sells at market if we promote the home correctly and get a lot of people in here in a short period of time. Okay, let's say you've gone back and forth a little bit on the pricing and you've arrived at a price that you think is acceptable and acceptable for them. What I want you to do is take that net sheet, that estimated proceeds sheet, and I want you to put the new price at the top of that estimated sheet if it's not the price that you originally put in there. And I want you to turn the document over and have your seller sign the bottom of the estimated sheet. Of course, you're going to tell them these values are going to adjust a little bit based on the new number that you have, but this is a great estimate and it should be pretty accurate. Could you please sign here? Boom, boom, boom. Got it signed. Price is now settled. Whew! Moving on. If you're a highly organized agent, and I hope that you are, you already have all of your listing paperwork stacked up in a digital file waiting for signature, and the only thing that's missing in that paperwork is the price. You should be able to open that document up, drop the price in there, finalize it, and send it for signature immediately. If you can do that, great. If you're still struggling with getting that done within the first appointment where you're sitting in their house or whenever you're talking to them with the listing presentation, or if they have to think about it, that's a whole nother set of circumstances. But I want this paperwork signed, as completely signed, all the paperwork, as soon as I possibly can get it signed. The next document that I'm going to present to my seller is, here's the plan. Now that we've got the paperwork finalized, let's talk about next steps. And it's a combination of your strategic marketing plan and then some of the other practical things that you need to deal with as you go through the process. It's a 30-day plan and it's written out. It's the execution of your marketing plan, which is going to include staging and photography and putting a sign out in the front yard. And this is the date that we're going to put the lockbox on the house. And this is the date we're going to softly introduce the property to the brokerage community. And now we're going to have a grand opening, big celebration, grand opening weekend, open house. The first open house we have is on this date. So you tell that person in advance, because you have a performance guarantee. You've got to get staging done. You got to get photography done. And you can't just let this project schedule just go out into forever, because you're losing important marketing time. This person has to buy into the fact that time is of the essence. You need to make sure that these things get done so we can hit this date. And if you establish that date, now you have to be able to back in these activities. It gives you a little bit of leverage to make sure that this person's getting these things done. And it also holds you accountable to your client to make sure that you're getting those things done also. Now, within the 30-day plan, you're going to have this great, huge grand opening and this great open house. And hopefully you're going to get a bunch of people showing up and a bunch of offers are going to pour in. And you're going to put on this strategic plan, this 30-day plan. We're going to sort through the offers and we're going to counter the offers that we want to counter. And I'm going to help you through that process. And I'm going to explain to you a little bit and help you sort out the offers that are coming in. Now, if we get to this point and we don't have multiple offers, we need to take a very serious look at the pricing assumptions that we made when we went to the market in the first place. Because if we didn't drive maximum traffic, and I know I've put a lot of effort in everything I should have done in order to get people there, and they didn't show up, it's almost 100% price at that point. It just is. It's the only last variable that you have at your disposal if, in fact, you've delivered on all the promotional promises in your marketing plan. So what you want to do is you want to prepare for the best. You're going to have multiple offers coming in. I'm going to help you as your agent walk through these offers and decide which ones we're going to counter. Going to go through offer and counter offer to drive that price up so that you can have the highest quality buyer that you can on paper, and that person's going to meet your expectations and hopefully drive that price up above the listed value. Now, in the event that that doesn't happen and we don't get multiple offers, we want to have a very serious discussion in that first 30 days about price and motivation with regards to selling. Does all that make sense? They should have buy-in at this point because you have a logical sequence of events that's going to happen. You've signed the paperwork, you've agreed on a price, you have the marketing strategic plan that you're going to start executing on, and here are all the action item steps we're taking. This is the 30-day project plan. The project is transitioning this person from one property out of the property, and here's where it looks like. Also part of that strategic plan when it comes to countering these offers and accepting an offer, there's still some paperwork that has to be done between the beginning and the end of this process. You're going to have to guide your seller through the seller disclosure document. You're going to have to guide them through all their requirements that have to do with performance on their side of this contract so that we can get a correct closing date when we do accept an offer.